Hello everyone, my name is Adrian Avellan. I'm the manager for the communities for developers. So if you took our tour, if you visited our booth and had many questions around plugin development, what is Q-SYS Open, how do you develop with Q-SYS? Let me grab my clicker. I'm sure you had many questions. And if you have not visited our booth, we'll try to explain also a little bit about what is Q-SYS Open, how do you develop plugins with Q-SYS, and what are your resources available for you to start your journey developing Q-SYS plugins. So let's get started by doing a little reminder of what the Q-SYS ecosystem is. If you visited our booth, this is a grand strategic vision that we keep talking about. The Q-SYS ecosystem is a mix of our Q-SYS native products, integration with Q-SYS partners, but also this whole Q-SYS Open section of the Q-SYS ecosystem. The Q-SYS ecosystem basically expands the offering from Q-SYS to not just native products, but also allows integrations with third-party products, which now allows to widen this ecosystem to no limits. So it's easy to integrate with Q-SYS, as you learned probably during your visit. Q-SYS is built around standard IT protocols that allows you to connect with third-party standards that use those protocols, but what if they don't? We also have a lot of products in the world that use APIs, and that's why we're going to talking about how do you develop plugins, how do you develop integrations that have APIs, and how do you connect that with Q-SYS. So looking at just third-party integrations, looking at the physical manifestations of those integrations that are plugins, let's talk a bit about plugins. They really enable a better user experience. The reusability of the integration by the user is key. And as it says, interoperability, control, monitoring of those devices through the Q-SYS ecosystem. So what opportunities does it offer to people who develop plugins? Well, it offers a brand new opportunity for those developers to not just do scripting work on Q-SYS, but also to offer those packaged plugins to both manufacturers, clients, and also for themselves and for their own job. A plugin is something that's much easier to use on the job, much more packageable, and something that you can really work on, package, and improve on. And you'll see that we have plenty of resources for you to get started on working on plugins. So we're going to be talking about communities for developers. I manage this community. This is a platform which is your resource, your journey to get started on how to develop for plugins. We have multiple resources. We have forums. We have about 4,000 developers who joined this platform since a year and a half, and that shows you a bit of all that you can find on communities. First, the resources that you find on communities, you find our SDK, you find our documentation. If you want to get started developing with plugins, we put out documentation where you can learn about the standards and definitions, all the tools that we put available, a lot of code examples, best practices. We have other tools. Recently, we released an encryption tool so that you can now sell encrypted plugins, so that you don't have to share source codes with your customers or with your manufacturer. We have basic frameworks for you to get started on, a lot of example, advanced frameworks, but also a lot of community resources. There's so much that Q-SYS has been put out for developers. The work we've done really was to open this API, give an open API to everybody out there in the world that can basically do whatever they want with it. So we're at a point where really developers are the best at helping each other, and this is why we created this platform. A lot of resources that you will find is a lot of curated resources that we produce with Q-SYS, blog articles either made by community users or from people from Q-SYS. We have a lot of high-quality webinars from the talentful marketing team that you already watch, and so we curate all this content and communities for really a developer audience. We have the forum groups, which is probably the most popular section of communities. We understand at Q-SYS that developers are most likely the best at helping other developers. If you call technical support, often you find yourself already ahead of the person you're calling over phone. So we put all our developers into one community, and it's fantastic to see that every time you have a question about advanced scripting and beyond plugin development, you have this whole community of 4,000 users that immediately respond to you, sometimes faster than your colleague next to you in the office. And in those groups, in those forums, you can subscribe to different topics. If you're more interested in plugins, you can learn everything about plugins. You can receive notification. If you're more interested into different technologies that Q-SYS offers, we have different groups where you can basically just talk about it, ask questions, share ideas, etc., etc. We have a whole system of notifications that you can tailor so that you don't get polluted by noise of all the notifications of people posting. So we try to curate really a notification system. We let you tailor your own relevant topics. You follow a bunch of topics. You can bookmark a lot of, well, that's magic. So groups are very important. We see a lot of activity. We see about between, I'd say, 50 and 100 people posting in communities. We get about 100 new users per month. So these are incredible statistics, and people are really able to be really happy to be able to help each other on those forums. They find the system very, very quick for them to be able to share code, develop on ideas, and share all that. A very important feature of communities is that we want to hear from you. Often we hear from you and say, hey, something's not working. We would like this plugin. We would like this integration. And one person calls support. You're just one voice in the void. So we have a tracking system on communities. If you want new features, if you want new plugins, if you feel like we're doing something right or something wrong, you post your ideas in communities. And the way this works is that the whole community reviews those ideas, votes on them, and once they become a hot topic for Q-SYS, the Q-SYS team starts looking at how could we scope this idea, can we turn it into a plugin, and we study the feasibility of those ideas. So that way, we never lose track of your voice. We're able to aggregate all of you guys together. When somebody is proposed and 30 other developers vote on it, we know the importance that you give to those ideas. So that's a very important section. Don't forget the ideas. This is where most of your complaints, most of your constructive ideas, should be posted. So these are a few examples of ideas that we released last year that all came from the community. The community wanted to have occupancy sensors, some way to integrate with sensors that Q-SYS does not provide. So we developed the Atlona plugin, which was heavily requested by the community. Everybody wanted to see a version of our amplifier that is now called the SPA Cube amplifier. And you had about 100 developers who asked for, hey, we need this product, we need this product. So it's a great feeling to see that when we release, we're able to give that feedback back to the community. They felt like they were heard, they're thankful, and we try to close the loop with the customer that way as well. It's a great tool for voice of customer as well. So our product managers are constantly skimming those ideas. They try to look at it per product categories, and everybody at Q-SYS try to get ownership of those ideas to try to understand the customer better as well, and the user. Feature requests, we've had a lot of features that were requested in the past 12 months, and a lot of them have been released as part of the ID system in communities. So don't dismiss ideas. If you feel like ideas are dragging, just tell your friends, tell your colleagues, hey, go vote on this idea. Are you also unhappy about this? Do you want this feature? The community is the best that kind of encourages itself in going to vote for those ideas. And when we see hundreds of users that want something, we cannot not acknowledge it. On communities, you find a section called the Code Exchange. The Code Exchange is a curated library of source code that is open source code that is shared by the entire community. So this code is free for you to research, to reverse engineer, to learn from, mostly for educational purposes, but also shows you a lot of examples, best practices, coding. We do a lot of reviews, so you will not find every piece of code that Q-SYS has been generated in the world in terms of Q-SYS code, but this is really code that we can author, that we version. We try to instill best practices for our developers. We want them to use code versioning. We want them to use authoring and things like that. We don't want to have code that goes out in the air. We don't know who made it, et cetera, et cetera. So for your own posterity, if you do work on Q-SYS plugins, if you work on Q-SYS code, Lua scripts or anything, code snippets, go post it in the Code Exchange. Not only will you get feedback, but also the rest of the community, can do what we call pull requests using the Git system and can improve upon the code. And we've had some amazing stories of code that's been submitted by people who started getting into plugin development and more advanced people who say, hey, great idea, let me add a few lines of codes. And people this way also learn on how to code properly and collaborate properly on code. So Code Exchange, go visit it. If you've never visited it, we have a library right now about 50, I think, plugins and about 20 code snippets over there that you can learn from, and we hope to get a lot more for you to browse. So that's it for communities. We have a lot more features coming for next year. If you haven't joined communities, please grab the QR code, go register an account. It's completely free. Announce yourself. Tell us what you do. We have groups where you can talk about your project. As long as you can talk about that, you can boast about what you're working on, and be a voice of Q-SYS. Develop your own, develop your own reputation on communities. We have a lot of people, who've been on there since 1 year and now are recognized as really the main workforce of the developer community. So it's great to see that after now a year and a half, we have really like confirmed developer people who are now in the process of building plugins that are not just amateur plugins or fun plugins, but now real commercial solutions that we can offer to third-party manufacturers and through the BS of the partnership. The whole idea of communities is that we hope that you graduate into this role of a Q-SYS developer, that you can join those partnership programs where you can start developing for third-party manufacturers, not just for clients, not just one script one time, but start offering something new to your customers and to a third-party manufacturer that you may not have had access before. So the proper follow-up to this, if you haven't heard during your tour, during the booth, we have all these partnership programs that work with communities. We look at communities all the time to look at, hey, who are the developers who can do X or Y for Q-SYS? And this is how we discover the talent in the pool of programmers, that do right now a lot of work, and I'm sure you heard about it. We integrate now with a lot of partners, third-party manufacturers, and these are all programmers who started on communities who have graduated into this status of a real Q-SYS developers who we now refer to doing this work with third-party manufacturers. So this leads to real opportunities. You learn how to program with Q-SYS. You're able to show your skills. Sometimes when you're a programmer, it's hard to be seen in this Q-SYS ecosystem, especially, usually you're just the workforce in the shadow doing all the work, but this is where really we celebrate the individuals, we celebrate the programmers, we celebrate the developers, and we really hope to see you there.